This Organized Chaos podcast is brought to you by JEMS Art Studio. JEMS Art Studio is an online store that allows access to prints that you can use for most anything, obviously as just a picture, or as a wallpaper, or as a bookmark, or anything you can think of. You can find JEMS Art Studio at etsy.com/shop/JEMS Art Studio. This podcast is also brought to you by listeners like you. Thank you.
So, moving from stuff that stinks to stuff that we've all been very excited about and happy, let's talk about Black Widow.
Oh, yeah, Black Widow. I did see this. I saw this about a week ago. Was it a week ago? Yes. I had quite a few things to say about it. I do want to stress, I did like this movie. I don't have any major issues with it. I guess, actually, I do have major issues with it, but not, like, movie-breaking issues. It's set immediately after Civil War, and I thought that was an interesting point to take at, because when it starts out, we have three of the... it's three, right? We have Hawkeye, Ant-Man, and... Is it Scarlet Witch? Yeah, Scarlet Witch are in the raft still. But it's immediately... So it's before Captain America breaks him out, but immediately after that's the big fighting's over. Black Widow is a fugitive at this point because she essentially sided with Captain America right at the last minute. And the movie does almost nothing with this, which I find super frustrating. It's a feature at the beginning, and then they bring it up at the end, and then that's it. Yeah. I thought it would be more interesting to really dive into, like, something like that, because it gave them the opportunity to, with this, like, do, like, prequels, so, like, they could do a movie set around what happens during Civil War, or what happens during the aftermath of the snap, but before everybody's blipped back, they could do a Black Widow 2 set during that time. I thought, ooh, that's an interesting idea, but they don't do anything with that, unfortunately. It just kind of bookends the piece. But while she's a fugitive, she essentially goes into her past, and she's researching the Black Widow program. And what we find out is there's, like, tons of Black Widows out there. But they're essentially mind-controlled. She's not mind-controlled, but there's a whole bunch that are mind-controlled. Including her... One of the better aspects of the movie is actually meeting a fake family of hers. This is a family she went undercover with in Ohio at the very beginning of the movie. What we see is she has her father, who's Red Guardian, played by David Harbour. I don't remember the name of the mother. It's Weisz, though. And then the sister, Florence Pugh? And I can't remember the character's name. But the family is actually great. It's a fake family. It's like an undercover family because David Harbour and Rachel Weisz are spies. So there are Russians undercover in America at that point. Which, it kind of also helps explain Scarlett Johansson's completely non-existent Russian accent. No, and kind of what they're saying is that she was just undercover in America a lot, so I think the explanation is that she just never got one. She just... Yeah, well, I don't know. No, they weren't sleeper agents. They knew they were agents. I don't know about the kids. I think it was fairly clear Natasha knew something was going on because she was the older sister. The younger sister didn't seem like she knew anything. She thought this was her family. And that's actually something else interesting they didn't really explore. I guess maybe is some resentment, but yeah, now that I'm talking about it, it seems like there's kind of a well of stuff they could explore with the younger sister there. But that brings us to one of probably the most advertised villain that everybody's trying to theorize. Who is Taskmaster? Because they introduced the MCU Taskmaster in this movie. And literally, as I'm watching the movie, my son leans in next to me And he's like, "Hey, Dad, who is that?" I'm like, "That's Taskmaster." He's like, "Oh, that's the guy in my Spider-Man game that can copy the moves of Spider-Man." It's like, yep. And yes. Oh my God, he plays that game nonstop. You have no idea. Yeah, I have them all. I haven't played Miles Morales yet. I got stuck on the DLC. My son's played it through. But, yeah, so they introduced Taskmaster, and I'm really... Like, it starts out fairly cool. Like, he's copying our moves and kind of kicking our butt to begin with. And I was kind of interested to see how Black Widow, a character like Black Widow, could take on Taskmaster. You know, here's somebody who can copy all your moves. And her biggest advantage over villains is her moves. Yes. And that's something he can just copy. So I was interested to see how they would handle that. And they handled that by making... by revealing that Taskmaster is actually a Black Widow, and there's actually this gas you can do to clear the mind control that they do to Black Widows. So she just does that to Taskmaster, and Taskmaster's taken care of. And I'm like, that is very disappointing. I wanted to see how someone like Black Widow could handle it, and it's like, oh, you just handle it with the thing built into the movie. Great. Yes, plot armor. The writers will figure it out for you. You don't have to figure out anything. No kidding. That's a whole different topic. But yes, oh my God. But, overall, I would say I enjoyed this movie more than I had complaints. I brought up my big issues. It's mainly Taskmaster and mainly how they have a great setting for this movie, and they don't do anything with it. But at the end of the day, overall, I would say I enjoyed this movie. It's good. It's not one of the best in the MCU. Definitely not one of the worst. It's a solid entry.
Okay. Yeah, what we had discussed earlier, I haven't had a chance to see it quite yet, but typically with the MCU movies, I kind of like to wait a little bit while. I mean, obviously for the Avenger ones, I kind of get to see those as quickly as I can before they're ruined for me.
Yes.
But I don't want to. I hate to say lower tier because we're discussing Black Widow, and I feel like this movie was kind of overdue.
Oh God, yes.
Like I kind of feel this should have been introduced. Well, I mean, the story wouldn't have worked, but maybe right after Civil War.
Yeah, I would have loved to seen like a movie that actually deals with Civil War, and I was kind of hoping this would be that, set during that time period. One of the best, like if you read the comic book Civil War, one of the best comic book arcs was Spider-Man's. And it's because Spider-Man's not directly involved in any of this stuff. He's kind of this friend of Tony Stark who's realizing, oh, this is some fucked up shit. And his arc in that is way more interesting than the main storyline of Civil War. I'd like to see something like that. I'm like,
well, yeah, and I feel that there's like a lot of different things. Like, well, I feel movies, especially comic book movies, will do this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
A good example I'm going to use is The Dark Knight. Now, not that there's anything wrong with this movie, just I have one small gripe with it, and it's just how they handled Two-Face and Harvey Dent. They handled Harvey Dent just fine.
Mm-hmm.
Did not handle Two-Face well at all, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Kind of just said, oh, these are his traits, this is him, and that's that.
Well, yeah. Well,
but in the books, he's way more devious, does way more damage, if not on par or more than Joker, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just because of the character and all. But yeah, I've been let down by movie interpretations of comic book characters and villains before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, Two-Face in that movie, it's a good point, because I always thought Two-Face was more interesting when there's almost like actual two sides of him, where you still have Harvey Dent there, but there's also this crazy maniac there. And that movie did feel like they gave you Harvey Dent, and at the end they just gave you the crazy maniac, and you never got to see two sides of him because he's there for like the last 20 minutes maybe.
And yeah, it's just kind of like teasing it the whole time, and you even get the new way of how he got scarred, which was great.
Yeah.
And just to kind of treat him like a second hand, like kind of like how they treated the Scarecrow in the beginning of that movie.
Yeah.
But I base it off of like an older graphic novel that I had read on Two-Face. And the whole novel is of Two-Face standing on top of a building on Gotham, flipping a coin, looking at the street. Obviously, he's contemplating suicide the entire time, and he's reliving like his childhood and how like his dad beat the crap out of him all the time, and just kind of reliving it. But the whole time having internal monologue between Harvey and Two-Face, and that is always what I felt captured that villain well. And I've only seen that done well on the screen in the animated series from '97.
Yes. Yeah.
But that whole cast and everything was just perfect.
Well, I think most people would agree the best version of Batman is the animated series.
Yeah. And it's funny that's also, that was kind of, I believe they based that loosely off of the Burton films.
Yeah.
The style inspired it.
Yeah, it was based off Batman '89. I remember when that came out. That movie was huge, and they were like, here's an animated series based on that. And they kind of
Batman Returns happened.
Yeah.
Batman Returns happened.
We don't talk about that. We don't.
I like it.
Batman Returns? Yeah, I don't. I'll give you Catwoman. Catwoman's great.
Well, it's Michelle Pfeiffer. I mean,
Yeah.
the only other appropriate person that time period would have been Sharon Stone, I think.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry. She got to be in the Catwoman movie.
Oh, that's right. There is a Catwoman movie. I somehow forgot that.
Yeah. But
oh man.
yes. So poorly served villains.
Poorly served villains. Yes, it happens. It does.
Oh my God. Well, okay. So Taskmaster is better than Catwoman. I will say that.
Yes. Taskmaster also made an appearance in the PlayStation's adventure games right in the beginning. There's like a tutorial mission, like the first one where it teaches you how to play the game.
Okay.
You kind of, and ironically, you face off against him as Black Widow.
Really?
You learn the moveset, and pretty much it's mostly just kind of like a wrestling leg flip move, gunshot, super kick, electrical bow staff.
Nice.
Thor's the best one to play as in that game. Well, no, Cap. Cap is, because you get that Brooklyn Brawler activated and just beat the crap out of people.
Well, if you're looking for a great Taskmaster, don't go to the Black Widow movie. If you're just looking for a fun 2 hours, okay. I want to go ahead and add some audio credits at the end here. The theme music you're hearing at the beginning and end of this podcast was written and performed by George Johansson, a very good friend of mine. And my current Patreons are Fel Martins, David Lara, and Lindsay Pankhurst. If you'd like to become a patron, go ahead and follow the link down below. Anything you can provide would be incredibly helpful to this channel. We're barely limping by right now. I'd love to make this my full-time job. I'm miles away from that right now. So any help you could provide, just $1 a month would be amazing. You know you want to. All your friends are doing it.